Lucas Meyer didn't look like a man who had just won $22 million. He looked like a man waiting for his own execution. Inside the cramped alpine cabin, the air is thick with the smell of stale coffee and fear. Lucas flinches at the sound of the wind rattling the window pane, his eyes darting to the heavy iron bolt he recently installed. He pulls a crumpled newspaper clipping from his pocket, an article about his lottery win, and stares at it with genuine loathing before shoving it back into his tattered coat. He checks his watch. The deadline to claim the fortune is only 48 hours away, yet he makes no move toward the door. Outside, the Alpine Alps loom like white giants, silent and hungry. A shadow passes by the frosted glass of the cabin window, and Lucas freezes, his breath hitching in his throat. He frantically types a code into a small portable carbon monoxide alarm on the table, checking its levels as if his life depends on the very air he breathes. Fast forward, the sun rises over a jagged cliff to find Lucas lying face down in the snow, the dream ticket still clutched in his dead, frozen fist. It is a million-dollar paradox. A man who died holding the very thing that could have saved him, found at the bottom of a cliff he was too terrified to climb. OVI expert Nora Cross steps out of the helicopter, the rotor wash kicking up a cloud of fine alpine powder. Under the sterile, blue-tinted lights of the morgue, she peels back the sheet covering Lucas's mare. Her gaze is clinical, searching for the glitch in the reality of this accident. Lucas's boots are caked in old mud, the soles worn down to almost nothing. His fingernails are bitten to the quick, a sign of extreme anxiety. Nora picks up the lottery ticket, now sealed in a plastic evidence bag. She tilts it under the light. It is smooth, white, and perfectly preserved. "Look at this," she murmurs to the coroner. "The victim fell 50 meters into a snowbank, yet there isn't a single crease on the paper." She checks the inner lining of Lucas's coat. It's soaked through with melted snow. If the ticket had been in his hand during the fall, it should be a pulpy mess. Nora's eyes narrow. This wasn't an accident. This was a stage play.
The clock is ticking. If the ticket isn't verified within 36 hours, the fortune vanishes. Nora meets Marcus, Lucas's cousin, in a village pub. Marcus is vibrating with nervous energy. "He was losing it, Nora. He thought everyone was a vulture," Marcus stammers. Nora learns that Lucas's bank accounts were drained just days before his death. She visits the local lottery commission. A representative had called 3 times asking about the claim process, but the caller wasn't Lucas. Nora receives a tip. A local business partner, Hans, was seen near the trails the night of the accident. Hans had lost everything when Lucas backed out of a deal years ago. Nora spots a set of specialized, custom-milled mountain boot studs in the evidence locker, found near the cliff's edge. They are Titan Grip brand. Only 2 people in the valley use them. One is Hans, the other is Karl, the cabin owner. "Lucas didn't just win the lottery," Steiner says, the local inspector. "He won a target on his back." Nora treks up to the isolation cabin, the wind howling. Karl, the cabin owner, meets her at the door. "He was a difficult guest," Karl says, gesturing to the bolted windows. "Paranoid, wouldn't even let me in." Nora walks through the rooms. She spots the gear rack, a heavy parka, and a wool hat. She checks the inventory list Lucas had written. Item 4, Hestra Alpine Pro gloves. The gloves are gone. "Karl, where are his thermal gloves?" Nora asks. Karl shrugs. Maybe he lost them in the snow. Nora looks at Karl's hands, scarred, calloused, and perfectly warm. She remembers the coroner's report. Lucas's fingers were severely frostbitten before the fall. He didn't lose the gloves. Someone took them. Nora notices a faint metallic smell near the ventilation duct in the bedroom. She runs her finger over the vent. There's a residue of fine black soot. Someone tampered with the airflow.
Inspector Steiner calls Nora with a smoking gun. They found a heavy mountaineering rope hidden in Hans' garage, snagged with blue coat fibers. But more importantly, they found the matching Titan grip stud wrench in Hans' tool chest. One of the studs on the wrench has a microscopic trace of Lukas's specific cabin mud. Steiner is triumphant. Hans went to the cabin, confronted him, and dragged him to the ledge. Hans is brought in, shouting his innocence. He admits he was on the mountain, but says he never entered the cabin. Nora watches the interrogation. She notices Hans's hands. They are shaking, not with guilt, but with a tremors-based condition. Hans can't even hold a pen steadily, let alone use a stud wrench to tighten a lug with the precision found at the crime scene. Nora starts to feel the pull of doubt. Someone with perfect mechanical control planted that wrench. Nora sits in her dark hotel room. "I missed something," she whispers. She pushed the police toward Hans, but the precision of the evidence is too perfect for a man with tremors. She feels the weight of the clock. The lottery deadline is only 10 hours away. If she's wrong about Hans, the killer is currently waiting for the bank transfer to clear. She looks at the photo of the vent soot. Why would a man who is paranoid about his air die of accidental oxygen deprivation? Her ego takes a hit. She let the Titan grip clue distract her from the killer's meticulous nature. She needs to go back to the source, the thermostat and the vents. Nora bypasses the police line and re-enters the cabin. She hooks her laptop into the smart home hub. 11 p.m., temp set to 18 degrees Celsius. 1 a.m., temp spikes to 32 degrees. Air intake valve closed. 4 a.m., temp drops back. Air intake open. Nora's blood runs cold. Turning the heat up while closing the intake creates a convection oven effect. This wasn't just to hide the time of death, it was the murder weapon. High heat and low oxygen would cause a paranoid man to pass out without a struggle. It's a clean kill. During that spike, Karl was seen at the village tavern, miles away, but the system was controlled remotely via a local server Karl managed. Nora realizes how the wrench got into Hans's garage. She checks the security logs of Hans's workshop. A guest login occurred 2 nights ago from the cabin's Wi-Fi. Karl framed Hans with surgical precision. But why leave the lottery ticket? Nora checks Lukas's phone records. A message sent at 11:30 p.m. Transfer confirmed. Let me out now. Karl wasn't after the ticket. He was after the bank transfer Lukas had already initiated. The ticket was left behind to make the motive look like suicide by pressure. Nora finds a crumpled bank receipt in the cabin's trash with Karl's personal routing number faintly embossed on the back. Karl had Lukas sign it before the air ran out. Nora finds Karl at the cliff's edge. The wind is screaming. "The gloves were a nice touch, Karl," Nora says. Karl doesn't turn. "I don't know what you're talking about." Lukas didn't fall. He was already unconscious from the hypoxia you induced in the bedroom, Nora states. You used the thermostat to bake the body, then you carried him out here. Karl finally turns. His eyes are dead. "You can't prove I was here," he says, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "I don't need to," Nora replies. "I found the transfer receipt with your routing number. You used his paranoia to make him pay for his own protection, and then you took the air he was paying for." Karl reaches for his jacket, but Nora's hand is on her radio. "The Titan grip studs, Karl. You tightened them so perfectly on Hans's wrench that it left a tool mark pattern only a master mechanic like you could produce." Karl falls silent, the weight of the irony crushing him. He looks at the ledge, the same ledge he pushed his client off. The game is over. 11 p.m.
Karl uses the remote app to close the cabin's ventilation and spike the heat. Inside, Lukas grows drowsy, his paranoid mind failing as the oxygen drops. 12 a.m. Karl enters wearing his thermal gloves. He finds Lukas unconscious on the bed. He forces the limp man to fingerprint the final transfer authorization. He leaves the body in the heat spike for 2 hours to establish his village alibi. 3 a.m. Karl returns, carries the body to the ledge, and places the pristine ticket in Lukas's hand. He shoves him over, watching the body disappear into the white void. Then he drives to Hans's garage to plant the perfect wrench, a calculated crime undone by the arrogance of his own precision.
The lottery deadline passes. The $22 million reverts to the state. Nora stands at the Geneva airport. Director Miller is in his office, the Swiss file resting on his desk. He flips to the final page, a photo of the bank transfer receipt. Miller signs the closed document with a sharp, decisive stroke. He looks at the clock. The fortune is gone. The killer is caught, and the mountains are silent once more.